All right, so welcome everyone to Unchained's continuing education webinar series. The goal here is to help you build your foundational Bitcoin knowledge. Bitcoin is a journey, and you should continue that journey by building upon that knowledge that you already have. So for today, we're actually going to be doing a beginner's guide to the Coldcard signing device. My name is Justine Harper. I'm the VP of Business Development, and today I'm joined by Trey, VP of Client Solutions, Karl, Director of Concierge, and our special guest today, Dee, who is joining us from Coinkite. Excited to have you guys here. We are going to be covering a general Coldcard overview, as well as going into how to set up a Coldcard. Let's say you order one, you get it in the mail, what do you do next? And then actually using that Coldcard within your Unchained Capital vault and adding it to your multi-sig setup. We're gonna walk you through each step of that, and then we're gonna have our live Q&A section as well. So, if you're in the audience and you have questions, make sure you're dropping those questions in the questions chat tab there at the bottom of your screen, and we will go through those in our live Q&A section. So to get started, I'm going to actually hand it over to Trey, who's going to help with our Coldcard overview.
Yeah, thanks, Justine. And Dee, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this. We at Unchained, we love Coinkite and Coldcard, and I use them for my personal setup. We have a lot of clients who do as well. But I think in the wider world of Bitcoin, they come across as maybe a little more intimidating or something like that. So we want to make sure that we give our clients a really good overview of what a Coldcard is, how it works, and that kind of stuff. Wonder if you could just start off with tell us what is a Coldcard first and foremost, and what are the design principles that kind of go into creating this device. I can see it's got that really cool like see-through case going on there. If you could just touch on some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Justine kind of explained in the intro, it's a hardware wallet, but we like to call it a signing device. Those things go hand in hand, but of course it's just a signing device. As on the screen there, it looks like a little calculator, and basically that's what's protecting your seed words. It's a device that deters bad actors from stealing your funds. If you have lots of money, you want the most secure device. So we believe that we have the most secure device on the market. And we are Bitcoin only, so we don't have any altcoins or anything like that. We strictly focus on Bitcoin, and that might be for less attack vectors and security purposes. Our motto is don't trust, verify. We have a fully transparent case on the device itself, and our GitHub code is fully verifiable online and open source. The device itself is a little bit cypherpunk. You can see right inside of it. And like I said, just like our code, we want to be transparent. So everything's open source, fully verifiable, and you can see all the parts inside. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And, I think our clients use, some do use Coldcard, but some use a Trezor and a Ledger or some combination of all of those. Do you mind just highlighting some of the key differences in the way that Coldcard approaches this signing device and the way that it's structured and the way that it works versus some of those other devices that are out there?
Sure. So just like I was explaining earlier, we are Bitcoin only, and that is for security purposes. With some altcoins, that it does introduce different attack vectors. Our device has never been hacked or broken. People have thrown millions of dollars trying to break our devices, and they have yet to be successful, thankfully. Obviously, security is a moving goalpost, so we try every day to continue to upgrade that security. So we have lots of options for our Coldcard. We have the air-gapped method. Air-gapped is basically just a way so that you're not plugging your Coldcard in directly. You can use this option, or you can plug it in. We have the NFC feature, which is basically kind of like a Apple Tap. So you can tap your Coldcard and sign transactions that way. Like I said earlier, our GitHub is fully verifiable and reproducible. Some other devices on the market don't have this feature. We have onboard anti-phishing protection, like we'll be explaining a little bit later, just so that when you're entering your PIN, that nothing malicious has been put on your Coldcard. We have encrypted USB communication, encrypted backups, self-destruct pins. So if you're in a bad scenario and you need to totally wipe the device so that a bad actor can't get to it, you can enter a PIN and completely wipe the device. We have decoy wallets. where you enter a certain PIN and you can actually access a different wallet than your main wallet. We have increased seed generation randomness with our roles.py Python code, fully open source. If you want to generate your seeds manually, you can roll some dice. It just makes it so that you're kind of more in control of that seed generation. We're the only device that offers BIP85, a little bit more of an advanced feature, as well as we offer Seed XOR for plausible deniability.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was a ton of stuff that you listed off there. I appreciate that. Out of all of the features, either that you listed or that you didn't, is there any one that kind of sticks out as something that is there and is really useful, but is kind of underutilized by Coldcard users, generally speaking, that you all are aware of?
Sure. So we like to use what's called a master fingerprint ID. It's basically a way for you to confirm with the software wallet that you're using and your Coldcard that you're accessing the appropriate wallet. Sometimes people sign a transaction and then they get an error saying, I can't sign this transaction, sorry, and they don't know why. So the master fingerprint ID is definitely an underused tool. It's basically the first 4 bytes of your public key, and it just helps confirm that you're accessing the correct wallet for signing purposes.
Yeah, that's great. All right, thank you. I've got one more question for you, and this is really related to the way that Unchained incorporates Coldcard into the way that you would use it in a platform, which is a partially signed Bitcoin transaction, a PSBT. Mm-hmm. What exactly is a PSBT? Some of our clients probably have heard of this, and some people may not have ever heard of it or have no idea what this is. It'd be really helpful if you could just give us a background there, a brief overview.
Yeah, for sure. So PSBT is a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. It's a file or format that has yet to be signed by the private key. So you need your public key and your private key to sign a transaction to broadcast it to the Bitcoin network. So basically, your software wallet or Unchained would create a transaction with your public key, and then you'd import that to your Coldcard, and you'd sign that transaction. It's intended to simplify workflows where a single or multiple part cooperation is needed to sign and broadcast a transaction. So in your case with Unchained, your customer would potentially sign, and then you guys would also sign with your key. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. I know we've got a lot of terminology and acronyms and all this stuff around Bitcoin, generally speaking. And so I think, some people find this stuff intimidating because, there's not really an easy or simple way to find some definitions. And we do use PSBTs as part of this process for setting up a vault with a Coldcard. I appreciate all of that. Really great information. So the next thing we want to do, Dee, is have you walk through a short video that we're going to play of how to set up a Coldcard, what that process looks like. And if you could just explain what the steps are here that we're showing and how this works when you're first getting started with a Coldcard.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing is, when you receive the device, it comes in a bag here. It's got a serial number that's on the bag and on the Coldcard itself, and there's a serial tab in it. So basically, you're going to check that and make sure that those three actually are correct and they're all the same. And then we're going to move on to obviously the legal terms of use, the sale. You're going to scroll down and confirm, clicked OK, and then there's that number at the top there is going to be the same as on the bag and then in the serial tab as well. Just so you know you're getting it from us.
Yeah, Dee, that's really interesting, right? You have this pretty intricate and elegant way of making sure that a type of man-in-the-middle attack is unlikely to have happened, or you can verify that it hasn't, right? Similar to your motto there, don't trust, verify.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. So this part here is your wallet backup card. You can put this on a piece of paper, or you can put it on a seed plate. We sell a seed plate as well. And you're going to start with your device PIN. You're going to have a prefix, which is going to be between 2 and 4 numbers. And then you're going to write down your anti-phishing word. So every time that you log in to your Coldcard, you're going to get the same anti-phishing word, so you know nothing malicious is going on. And then after you get your phishing words, you're going to put in your last 2 to 4 digits of your PIN, click confirm, and then your PIN is set. So as you see, we're saving here, and now you have a new screen. So you can import a wallet from a Ledger Trezor if you want, we recommend generating a new seed, and then it will automatically generate your 12 or 24 words automatically using our open source software, or you can use the rolls.py Python code and roll dice yourself. So you're going to write down those words, and then there's a seed plate right there. So we like steel because, you know, if you're in a fire, you know, you want something that will stay hardy, right? A piece of paper can burn up in a fire. Seed plate, a little harder. The last step here is basically just confirming your words, just making sure that you wrote them down properly. It's going to ask you all your words, what's word 5, what's word 6, what's word 7, in a random order, just so that you know that you wrote down those words correctly and you're not missing anything.
Very good. Thank you, Dee. Really great overview. I know, this video is going to be made available, and Coinkite and on the Coldcard site has a lot of really good resources for digging into some of the functionality that's there, some basics of setting up, and really getting into all of the nuances that you can do with a Coldcard. So with that, Karl here is going to take us through using a Coldcard with your Unchained vault, adding your Coldcard as a key, configuring it, and then actually verifying Bitcoin addresses that are associated with that vault. So thank you, Dee. I really appreciate that overview, and looking forward to hearing about some of the other stuff that Coinkite does and offers its clients a little bit later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Dee, for that setup walkthrough. So we're going to be going through how you would incorporate a Coldcard into an Unchained vault. And so the first step is adding your Coldcard as a key to your account. And just seeing if you want to go over to this video here. So we'll start by adding a key. And here we are in the Unchained dashboard. I'm going to head over to the Keys tab here and select to upload a new key. And I'm giving this Coldcard the name Lucy. You'll see in a second I've also given the Coldcard a nickname. And then we're selecting Coldcard from the choices here. And so here are some instructions for what to do with your Coldcard to add it as a key to the platform. We need to export what's called a public key or an XPub. And so this video right here is just demonstrating that. You'll see me power up the device and go through entering my PIN as Dee talked through before, recognizing those anti-phishing words, and then completing the PIN. And so the instructions for what to do with your device are still right there on the Unchained website. And I'm just going to go through another option here. You can scroll down to Advanced and go to micro SD cards. This is how we're going to shuttle information back and forth between the device. So make sure you plug it in. We don't want to copy an XPub just into the void. Selecting micro SD card and then choosing Export Wallet. And the second option from the bottom is actually Unchained Capital. So you know you're in the right place, and giving you a little message here about what's being copied to this card. And there is some privacy implications here. So we're just doing this once, and we're seeing which file is written and the name of it. So we have the file copied onto the micro SD card, and now we can upload it as a key. So here we are back in the Unchained platform, and we're just grabbing that file from our micro SD card. Opening, and there we go. So there is our public key from this device, and then a chance to review it before we actually create the key. And so this is, the step of adding a key to your account. Following that, you may add another key. It could be another Coldcard. It could be a Trezor, a Ledger, the other devices we support. But once your vault is created with those two keys of yours, and the third being Unchained, there's actually one additional piece, and that's teaching your Coldcard that's part of this setup. Because really the Coldcard has no idea what we've done with that piece of information. So right now we're sort of giving the Coldcard its brains to be able to sign transactions in the future. And so here we are in my vault, and we're scrolling down to this Vault Tools section and hitting View next to Coldcard Configuration. So here again, there's some instructions exactly what to do with this file, but we're going to download it and copy it onto that micro SD card. Again, it's the shuttle between our computer and the device itself. So we're just going to drag that file right onto the micro SD card. There it is next to our exported public key. And we're going to take that micro SD card with the configuration file and save it to the Coldcard. And there's a reason we did it this way, a sort of a technical reason that saves you some privacy in the future. But here I am just going through selecting multi-sig wallets, and there aren't any set up, but we're going to import the one we just copied. And there we go. So there's only one file to pick from. Makes it easy on you. And that's what it looks like. So we're going to hit OK here. And would you like to create a new multi-sig wallet? There's the name, and it actually matches the vault ID. And it's just verifying that this is a 2 of 3 multi-sig vault. It's not 2 of 4 or 2 of 5, where Unchained has maliciously slipped in another key that will allow us to control your Bitcoin. You get to verify that right on the screen. All right. And then, so pretty much it's done. We've added a key and we've actually configured the Coldcard. So your vault is all ready to go. But the cool thing about the Coldcard, and something we always harp on, is, don't trust, verify. And so one of the powerful pieces of the Coldcard is you can actually double check before you send to your vault address that you really are sending to the right place. You're not sending to, let's say, an address that has been maliciously replaced by some attacker, or you're sending possibly to a different vault that's not a 2 of 3. And so we're going to go through just how you really verify what's happening here. And again, this sort of 3 features. One is you're confirming a key to this address specifically. The second being ensuring that it's a 2 of 3 address. It's not 2 of 4 or anything else. And it's giving you the confidence that this is the correct address, and even though your computer has been connected to the internet, it's not being replaced by that of an attacker or a bad actor. All right, so here we are back at the Coldcard, and we're going to select Address Explorer. And here's just a list of some text you can scroll through, warning you about some of the technical features of Coldcard. But you can press 4 to go through that, and we'll wait. And you'll see there are a few addresses at the top here, but we're going to scroll all the way down to the name of our wallet that we just created. And it's going to display actually the first 10 addresses. And this first one, if we just look at, it looks like 34U at the beginning and 3BF at the end. And this is actually the first address in our vault as well. So just that extra confidence that you're sending to the right place. All right. Yeah, so that's really taking you through from A to Z, adding a Coldcard to your account, creating a vault, and then configuring that Coldcard, and then that little bonus of going the extra distance, verifying, and making sure you're sending to the right place. But now I'm going to pass it back to Dee and Trey to discuss some of the Coinkite products in addition to Coldcards.
Yeah, thanks, Karl. Great overview there. The video will be available for you to rewatch. Understand you're not going to be taking notes during all of that and that kind of thing, but really good to have that visual view of the flow to see all the steps that are laid out in getting a Coldcard uploaded, that public key uploaded to the platform, building a vault, and making sure that your Coldcard can make that connection and talk to your vault so it can sign transactions and verify that you're actually sending to yourself. Really great stuff. Dee, we've talked about what a Coldcard is. We've talked about some of the features that make it unique, some of the design principles there. But Coldcard is not all that Coinkite does, right? What are some of the other products and initiatives that you all are working on? How do you think about the way that you approach the market beyond just giving these great hardware devices out to people?
Yeah, of course. So I think we believe in protecting your keys, your seed words at all costs. So like we were explaining earlier, it does come with a piece of paper that you can write your seed words down with. But at the end of the day, that could be an attack vector, or that could be a risk to fire, water damage, whatnot. So we believe that seed plate would be great for this. We have a center punch and a metal plate, and you just basically you put in the first 4 digits of every seed word, and it creates the rest for you. We put this on metal so that, like I said, with fire, flood, whatnot, you're still secure. So that's just a great pair to go with the Coldcard. We also have open dimes, which is basically like a gift card. It's making Bitcoin a bearer asset. So you can give a USB to someone with Bitcoin, and you can guarantee that the person giving it to you does not have the private key, and you cannot get the private key unless you unseal that USB by basically pushing out a chip on the device itself. It's a nice, fun way for wedding gifts, at any birthday, whatever. It's just something fun that we created. We also have the Block Clock Mini, also just a fun toy to have. It's basically a clock for Bitcoin. So it lists the Bitcoin price, it lists what the block height is, a lot of information. There's thousands of different options for that. And it's just like it's just a clock in your background. Trey has one in his background actually, and a lot of people really love it. So it's a great way to look up, see the price, see how many sats per dollar it is today. Yeah, it's a great little toy. We also have the Block Clock Micro coming out. That's more of a desk smaller version of the Block Clock Mini. It serves the same function, just a little bit smaller. Going forward, though, we're looking at more options for convenience. So obviously, with security, it's hard to have convenience as well, right? If you want something that's extremely secure, you do need to do a little bit of research and learn about what it is, because if you sacrifice convenience for security, your funds may not be as safe as possible. So forward looking, we're now offering what is called a tap signer. It basically is a cheaper, budget-friendly way to have a signing device in your wallet by basically taking a hot wallet and expanding into a cold wallet. So instead of having, say, a hot wallet on your phone where you can spend funds right away, it basically acts as the signer. So if you wanted to spend funds from your phone, you would make that PSBT. You would basically create that transaction, and then you would sign that private key or that tap signer. You'd sign with it, and it's basically like a 2-factor authentication. So instead of being able to broadcast it without any 2-factor authentication, it basically just adds that little extra step so people can't just log into your phone and send funds. Now the Sats card is basically like the open dime. It's in a card factor. You can see it in the bottom right above the tap signer. Basically serves the same function as the open dime, a little more convenient, works with your phone, and you basically tap it, you load some funds on it, you give it to someone. You can give it to as many people as you want. When they're ready to unseal, they tap it again, click unseal, you put a pin in, which is on the back of the Sats card, and it uses that and it spends those funds. Now, the great thing about a Sats card is that it's basically an open dime times 10. So you have 10 slots to use. So once you've unsealed one of the slots, you basically generate a new slot, and you can use it again, and then you can send it around as many times as you want, guaranteeing that the person giving it to you knows that they don't have the private key. So that's some forward-looking stuff that we're looking at to bridge that gap between security as well as convenience.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Thanks, Dee. I absolutely love my block clock. You can probably see it there. When the video gets a little bigger, you'll be able to see it in a little more detail. This picture doesn't really do it justice. It's like it's a piece of art, really. right? It's so well designed. Just, it's heavy and just has such a good feel to it and look to it in a room. That's a really nice little piece. And I love that you can configure it the way that you want, right? I've got Moscow time up there. I've got the price. I've got the block height, all of that. So it is really great. Well, Dee, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Justine, I'm going to pass it back to you. I think we're ready for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you guys. And yes, just for a reminder, for everyone here, there's been a couple questions about like, why do I need a Coldcard, or like, how does this differ? This webinar is really to get you more familiar with the Coldcard device. It's one of the devices you can use with your Unchained vault setup. It's one of our personal favorites, right? We're all big fans of the Coldcard and all of their swag, as being pointed out in the chat itself. So just because we're talking about Coldcard doesn't mean you have to have a Coldcard with your Unchained vault, though. So just want to be clear to anybody watching. But this is just supposed to kind of help get you a little more familiar with it. Maybe it's something that you've been curious about, but it's a little intimidating. It looks a little more technical. There's a few more steps to set it up. So we really just wanted to kind of walk you through the process, but then also give you the opportunity to ask questions about it. So if you are in the audience, make sure you're dropping those questions into the questions tab, because we are going to start working through those now. So I don't know, Karl, did you see a question right off the top of your head that you wanted to jump into? We're going to do a little bit of round robin here.
Yeah, I've got one here, and I can, Dee, you can add anything if I missed it, but another feature of the Coldcard is a few other implementations. BIP35 implementation in the Coldcard. So I'll describe this, and then a similar question about Seed XOR. And so BIP85 is sort of a way where your keys are determined deterministically from your seed phrase. It's a way for your seed phrase to determine other seed phrases. So just one way to, let's say you have multiple keys, as you would if you have a vault. You could have one sort of main seed phrase and then determine other ones from that. So again, it's sort of one backup meant to make your life a little bit easier. And then the Seed XOR is similar to, let's say you have a seed and you have it written down, but you want a little bit more protection. You can actually take that seed and split it up. So maybe you have that seed becomes from 24 words to 2 sets of 24 words, when combined, giving the correct overall seed. But each set of 24 words on its own doesn't get you anything, or maybe gets you funds to a dummy wallet. So just a way of sort of playing around with seed words and your backups to give you a little bit more security.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I think a lot of people are definitely intimidated by our device. You know, there's lots of options, but it can be very simple too, right? It doesn't have to be as complicated as adding these implementations. They have, you know, the device has that option if you'd like to use them, but you don't have to, right? It's as easy as you like, or as difficult as you like. So the goal is to have options. And yeah, so for BIP85, it's basically, instead of, if you want to have separate wallets for separate things, maybe you have some KYC sats and some non-KYC sats, or you want to keep your, you know, one exchange fund separate from your other exchange funds. Instead of having 5 different seed plates or pieces of paper with all of your words written down, you could basically have one seed plate or piece of paper, and you can access all those different wallets just from that one. So it just makes it nice and convenient. And then, yeah, for the XOR, Seed XOR, it's just great. You know, someone, if they come into your house, you know, you're getting robbed, and they take your seed plate, or you know, they take your piece of paper, you know, they'll basically be accessing a wallet with perhaps a small amount of funds, or a decoy wallet, rather than your massive stash. So it's just a way to have plausible deniability. So you know, all your funds aren't completely taken from you.
Yeah, thanks for that. One other thing to add there, right, is that Seed XOR is great, right? It's a really great feature, and it's in some ways trying to replicate in a different way the security benefits that are done with multi-sig, right? And so, you know, at Unchained, our clients are using multi-sig. We are eliminating single points of failure by using some different functionality that's built into Bitcoin, as opposed to doing it at the seed level. And so, you know, it's really important to just make sure that we recognize that, all these different techniques can be used, but we want to make sure that we don't overcomplicate it. I think, when we set up our clients using vaults and multiple keys in multi-sig, we want to make sure that we're having the proper balance between security and complexity in doing so. The way that I use my Coldcard is not only with my vault, but I also use some single sig. Have some sats that I'm storing in single sig so that it's a little bit quicker for me to access. Obviously, I don't do that for my whole stack. That's why I have my Unchained vault. But adding some extra security features for that single sig is really a great way to incorporate that Seed XOR or some of the other security benefits that a Coldcard has available to it.
Well, I think Dee hit it perfectly on the head there. Is like options. Options are good, and it can be as easy or as complicated as you want it. And I think this is a good segue into this question from Rachel, which she highlights. It seems quite a bit more technically complicated than adding the Trezor as a signing device to her Unchained account. Is this because the security of the Coldcard is superior? The Coldcard offers additional features, right? You have advanced settings. I have not even experimented with all of the advanced settings in my Coldcard, but as you mentioned, it can be as easy as you want it to be. It could simply be using it the exact same way that you use your Trezor, which you're just signing, and maybe you're not playing with those advanced features. The setup to actually connect it to your Unchained vault is a little bit different because we don't plug that Coldcard into our computer and digitally transfer that information. We're doing it manually, right? We're using that micro SD card and we're physically transferring that over. So because of that, there are some additional steps, but just think of it as you're doing the same thing. You are transferring information from your device to the your Unchained account, right? So that we can build that vault. It's just the way that you're transferring it's different. You're doing it a little bit more manually. So I wanted to give Dee an opportunity, though, to maybe explain why. Like, why is that an option? Why would we want to do that manually versus then electronically? What are additional benefits that offers?
Right, of course. Yeah, so like I said, options are great. You can be as easy or as complicated as you want. Plugging it in does come with risk, right? If you're plugging a USB or USB-C from your computer to your Coldcard, there is data that is transferring between those two devices, right? So if you're using like an air-gapped solution, then technically you have like kind of an intermediary, right? So you have your Coldcard, you're putting the data that you confirmed and you want onto your SD card, and you're putting into your computer, right? So your Coldcard is not directly communicating with your PC. There's kind of that intermediary that kind of allows you to confirm what data is being transferred instead of not knowing maybe if you have some malicious, some malicious software on your computer that might be interacting with your Coldcard in a way that you don't know or you don't want. That's kind of the thing that we look at. And like I said, you can plug it in. We haven't had any attack vectors like that since or yet. But like I said, security is a moving goalpost. As time goes on, people do figure these things out. So having that option to just reducing that attack vector or reducing that risk for some might be important.
One thing we talked about on our last month's webinar, if any of you joined, is like security is also a journey, right? Bitcoin's a journey, and so is your security surrounding it. And so, yeah, the Coldcard is an option, and for some people, maybe they look at it and they're like, I'm not ready for that. That's okay. Like, that's totally okay. It may be something you want to experiment with later. The goal here is just to, it's actually not as hard as it sounds. I've joked with NVK that the Coldcard, that little calculator, was super intimidating and sat on my shelf for a little bit. And then I finally got it out and did the thing, and I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't really as hard as I thought. So yeah, sometimes you just kind of have to create a safe environment. Don't move your whole life savings onto it while you're experimenting. Maybe just set it up. If you've got one sitting on a shelf, I highly recommend setting it up. Do that as a first step, but it's an option for sure.
Yeah, you almost get a little bit of extra education in Bitcoin and private keys and stuff when you use a Coldcard, because it's some of the steps that are needed when you're setting up your seed and all this stuff as we were going through. Some of that is abstracted away a little more with a Trezor or with a Ledger or some other devices out there. And so, as part of that educational journey that Justine was just talking about, a Coldcard is a really great way to kind of, take that to a different step and a different path so that you can really more deeply understand how private keys work and how these signing devices are really separate and distinct from the wallet software that you may be using to actually coordinate your transactions and receive deposits into Bitcoin addresses or transfer it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just about transparency, right? There's a lot of other devices that have things going on in the background that you don't know about. So, just being upfront, transparent, and showing you all those options is great. And, obviously it does intimidate some people, but it's a journey. And again, it can be as easy or as complicated as you like.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We've got so many great questions. So thank you guys for all the great questions. We're going to try to get through as many as we can. Karl, did you see any that you wanted to jump in on real quick?
Yes, I've got another one here from Mark C. Can you use multiple wallets on one Coldcard? And great question. Yeah, so Trey sort of alluded to this earlier. He has, a Coldcard involved in one of his multi-sig wallets. He also can use it as a single signature signing device. But even in the Unchained platform, let's say you have a vault for your Roth IRA that's in Bitcoin, and then you have a vault personally. You can configure your Coldcard to be able to sign for both of those. And it's really just one more step of configuring it. But yeah, you can use the same device for multiple vaults, multiple wallets. Yeah, and we're always, on the concierge team, always happy to help you if you have questions with that, to get you set up with that.
Yeah, just to speak on that, we were talking about BIP85 earlier, but if you want to have one of your signing devices or signing keys in a multi-sig setup, you can use one of those BIP85 indexes. And like Karl said, you don't even need to get that deep. You can basically just use your single sig to create multiple multi-sig setups and sign for multiple different multi-sig setups. So yeah, it's great. You can use one or you can use it for multiple wallets for sure.
Awesome. We've got a great question about firmware, which is always a good question. So the question is, how often do we need to update the firmware? Is it tricky updating it while air-gapped? Well, how often is an interesting one. I personally, and maybe we all have our own policy here, I personally don't want to be the first one, and I don't want to be the last one to update my firmware, right? So generally, many times this is updating something or maybe improving upon the firmware that's already existent on your device, right? So you want to make sure things are up to date. Maybe there's a bug. Maybe there's things that you want to make sure you have the most current fix for it, right? But I don't like to be the first one to run that new firmware. So I generally will see a new one come out, maybe give it a couple weeks, depending on what the fix is, what's going on, before I update my own firmware. Anybody else? Do we have a space? Nothing in Bitcoin is one thing, right? Like there is no set standard, but does anybody else have an additional opinion on that? Or is that kind of how you guys always work with your firmware as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great opinion, great approach. Obviously, yeah, you don't want to be the first. We test these things a lot. So, when we're giving an upgrade or an update, it is secure. But yeah, it does, of course, don't trust verify. So if there's some coders in the audience, you can literally confirm this firmware on GitHub and make sure that there's no malicious downloading going on. And it's really not that tricky. Basically, you have your SD card. You load the firmware onto the SD card. You just plug it into your Coldcard, and then you go to the settings saying upgrade firmware. That would you like to upgrade? This is the version, and then you click go, and then it loads up. So very simple. But you don't have to upgrade, right? It does work without upgrades or without firmware updates. It's just, yeah, sometimes there are bugs. Sometimes there are implementations that we want to add to the Coldcard for optionality's sake. And if you want to use those upgrades, then updating the firmware is important.
And yeah, great question is the follow-up of just, when you talk about the air gap, the question really is like, how much more complexity does this add? It's really the same thing that you saw there in the videos that Karl was sharing. All you're doing is you're transferring things onto that micro SD card and then into the Coldcard itself. So you're just moving it from your computer to it. The same with when you're signing a transaction. So it's just an additional step. I wouldn't say it's more complicated. It's just that you're physically taking a file, you're putting on that micro SD, and then you're taking the micro SD, putting it into the Coldcard. If you're signing a transaction, right, you're doing that on the device, and then maybe you're transferring it back. If you're updating the firmware, you're just going through the process. So it's really just using that micro SD to transfer the information. Not complicated, just an additional step. Great, awesome question.
A quick question from Philip here, just saying, where do you get that new firmware? So that is on the Coldcard website and docs section there. But Dee, do you want to just give a little bit of overview on what should you look for when you're getting that firmware? You know, there is a way to actually cryptographically check that you're downloading the right file and all of that as well. Maybe just a quick overview on that process.
Yeah, of course. So if you go to coldcard.com/docs/upgrade, that's where our latest firmware is going to be. You can also go to our GitHub Coldcard firmware, and you can go through all the files and confirm that there's no malicious intent going on there. But for most users, they will go to our Coldcard website, click that .dfu file, download it to their SD card, and plug it into their Coldcard and upgrade. So it's pretty simple and easy.
It's pretty straightforward. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the goal, right? We want to make things nice and simple. It is intimidating, but it's not overcomplicated once you understand it. It's just going through that process, once or twice and understanding what you're doing. And yeah, it's nice and easy.
Yeah. One other one here from Yadid. My key check for Coldcard is due. Can I still deposit into my vault? Why is that key check even necessary? So this is somewhat related in that, when you are doing a key check on our platform, you're going through that same process as what Karl was walking us through when we were creating that new key. You're going through and exporting that extended public key, and you're uploading it to the vault, and that performs that same key check. Why are the key checks necessary? So the key checks are designed to make sure that the devices, as well as your seed phrases, have not been compromised, right? You're storing them in different locations. Maybe you've got, some of that key material in your home. Maybe you've got it at a bank in a safety deposit box, or with a trusted family member or friend in their vault, or maybe in an office locked away or something like that. Those key checks are designed to make sure that when you visit those sites on a 90-day cadence, or however you'd like to do that, that it looks the way that you left it the last time, that it doesn't look like the device has been tampered with, that the seed phrase is still there and it's legible, that the device itself is still actually working, and it hasn't been bricked for whatever reason. I mean, these devices, they are really great, they're very well made, but all hardware can run into issues and break, and so you want to be aware of the fact that has happened. And so it's really important that you do these key checks on a regular basis. You don't necessarily want to just set it and forget it, even though technically you are able to do that. It's really good practice to perform those key checks on a regular basis so that you've got all your bases covered there. Anything else that Karl or Justine you want to add to that process there, for that answer?
No, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think you covered it.
There are a few that I wanted to cover real quick, kind of in a quick swoop. Some easier questions that had to do with specifically the Unchained vault, just because we've got a little over 10 minutes, and just I think we can knock a few of these out. So the first one was, I think it went into the chat. The question was, do we need separate sets of separate sets of keys for every vault? No. You can have your 2 keys, and you can create as many vaults as you want. You can actually use those same 2 keys in your business account, so you can use them in your IRA. We change a few things if you're going to do that, which we'll help walk through. We're just changing some pathways there, right? But 2 keys is all you need, and you can create as many vaults as you want within your Unchained account. The other question was from Jake about, do I need my Coldcard every time I transfer BTC into my vault, or is it just when I'm trying to take BTC out? That's a great question. To deposit into your address, you do not need your keys. Think of the only time you're going to need your keys or your Coldcard signing device in this situation is when you need to sign a transaction, because in order to move Bitcoin out, right, you have to sign a transaction to prove ownership and therefore be able to spend or move your Bitcoin. So to deposit in, nope, you don't need your keys. You can keep those safe and sound. You can deposit into your vault by just grabbing that deposit address off of your vault homepage, and no keys needed. So just wanted to touch on those.
And Justine,
I like. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dee.
Go ahead, Trey. I was just going to say, it's great. A great analogy is basically like email, right? People can, you give your public email to someone, they can send you as many emails as you want, whether that's junk or not. In order to send an email, right, you need to enter your password. So, your public key is your email, and your private key is your password.
Yeah, I know that is a great analogy. What I was going to add is that while you're not required to have your keys available to send Bitcoin in, it is good practice to validate that address on the device that you're sending to make sure, again, as Karl was showing, that the quorum that address was created with is actually 2 of 3 and not 2 of 4 or some other quorum, that a key has been left out or slipped in that you don't know about and are not expecting, and that you are able to sign for transactions from that address in the future, right? One thing that's really great about Coldcard that is not, at least not easily accessible on some of the other devices, is that you can actually export a list of addresses from the Address Explorer in a Coldcard, and you can save that down on your computer. And that way, you can verify each one of those lists, each one of those addresses in order without having to access your device at all. Whereas on our platform with the Trezor, let's say, in order to verify that address on the device, you would plug it in and go through that essentially like a key check type process. So I just wanted to highlight that it is a kind of a different feature that's available that makes it really easy to get the best of both worlds. You don't have to access that device, but you can still verify that the address that you're seeing on the screen is in fact linked to the keys that you're controlling.
Absolutely. Yeah, the download file is the first 250 addresses. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet. So you download that onto your SD card, you plug it into your computer, and you just see a massive list. A lot of people that run businesses really like this because they don't have to keep generating and showing. They just take the next one and send. So yeah, it's a great feature for sure.
So I wanted to jump in. So Tom, he's an Unchained team member, is in the audience, and he had a question. So we had to answer Tom's question. And this may be a little bit more technical than maybe some individuals are ready for, but it's a pretty important aspect of the Coldcard, in my opinion. So his question is, Dee, can you perhaps briefly cover the option for dress pin and brick pin? Dee, if you don't mind just covering maybe what that is and how it works.
Yeah, of course. So we have a lot of what we call trick pin optionality. So those are two of many different, basically it's like if this, then this. So if I put in this pin, then I get out this. So for an example, you're in a bad situation. You don't want a bad actor to access your funds. So they say, hey, type in your pin. So you type in your trick pin, it might be 0000, and that will totally brick the device. It will basically make that device non-functional, and so that bad actor cannot get to your funds. Same with the duress pin, a little different. It won't totally wipe the device, but basically it puts you into a new wallet that is basically like just like a fake. So it's not your real wallet. It's just a wallet that has maybe a few funds in it, or just a wallet that doesn't have all your funds in it. So that a bad actor may look at it and see, oh, you can only take this amount of funds or whatnot. It's basically just tricking the person into a different wallet than what your vault or your massive hoard is located in. But yes, awesome. definitely a advanced feature. So always take caution when using these things, and take it slowly. Right, it's a journey. You can go as slow or as fast as you want. Just make sure that you know what you're doing and you're not locking yourself out of your own funds, for sure.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important to keep those seed phrases, right? Yes. Which is something that we harp on all the time. You do not want to get rid of those seed phrases, even if you're no longer using the wallet. Exactly. Mark it as inactive or not used or whatever, but never get rid of seed phrases. Always secure those in a good location and secure. Look at them during your key checks. Make sure that you've got those seed phrases. So in case you do screw something up on a device itself and you brick it accidentally and all that data is wiped away, you still have that seed phrase. You can just load it into a new device or the same one after it's been rebooted, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's great. Seed phrases, physical seed phrases. That's your, don't depend on devices. We hammer that drum pretty loudly. Yeah, backups. Susan had a question that I think we could kind of cover pretty quickly, but Susan's asking, I guess she's using a ledger and a Trezor currently, and she's asking which should she replace first, she's asking what the bigger security risk is. So I'm going to kind of like reframe this question a little bit, because look, Trezor and Ledger are good devices. They're secure, been around for a long time. You can check open source software there. We actually send out Trezors with our concierge package because they are very approachable for newcomers who generally are the ones who are using the concierge package and asking us to send devices to them. So it's really what you're more comfortable with, Susan. So when you mess with your Trezor or your Ledger, which one do you like more? So I'm sure we all have our own personal opinions of which one we prefer, but it's really which one do you prefer? And then whichever one maybe you don't like as much, replace it with the Coldcard. Get used to that. I would say, hey, if you've got a Coldcard though, set it up. Maybe you could create even a single signature wallet first, get a feel for how that feels, and then add it to your Unchained Vault multi-sig setup. So just wanted to kind of touch on that one. It did have a few upvotes, but also I wouldn't say that like either one has a bigger security risk. It's more of, what works for you. Everything has trade-offs, right? Bitcoin is about trade-offs. So it's choosing which trade-offs works best for you.
And Justine, I just want to add one more thing, which is that you don't have to replace your ledger at all or your Trezor at all. Actually, you can take your physical seed phrase, which you are securing somewhere in physical form and checking on a regular basis, like we're talking about, and you can just load that up into your Coldcard and set it up that way. And maybe that's mirroring one of the other two there, and you can get comfortable with it before you repurpose that other device or stop using it altogether, or however you want to go about that.
Yeah, and even in the future, I mean, you can also, with the Unchained setup, you can actually have multiple different vaults with different key quorums. So obviously you don't want to overcomplicate things, but like you could have a vault with your Trezor and Ledger, and then maybe you have a vault with your Trezor and your Coldcard. So it's up to you. You have a lot of options. It's just deciding what's best. But that's a great point, is like your seed phrases are cross-compatible, right? Like you can move them around and they can actually be used in more than one device if you really want them to be. So yeah, that's a great point as well. We have got just a few more minutes left. I wanted to ask if Karl or Dee or Trey, even if you guys see any questions that we haven't answered yet that you just really wanted to ensure we covered.
Yeah, just a quick one here. Does Coldcard have a battery? It doesn't. It has to be plugged into a power source. We sell something called Cold Power that basically uses a 9-volt battery to power your device. It's basically just a super cypherpunk way of doing it. You can plug it into your wall or whatnot as well. The reason why we did no battery was because it actually makes the device last a lot longer, right? If when you have a battery, it could be corrupted. It can kind of leak out, and just having no battery we found was actually a lot more beneficial and keeps the longevity of that device.
Yeah, the 9-volt is pretty cool, I have to say. It's one of those things where maybe it's not the way you use it all the time, but it's a fun way to use it for sure.
For sure.
All right. Let's see. Trey, did you see any other questions that we hadn't had a chance to answer yet?
Yeah, just getting off mute there. So Jesse Marks is asking something about just the Unchained platform specifically. Is there a way to archive old keys in Unchained so they no longer have to see them? We are working on building that functionality. Right now, you're not able to do that, but I think sometime in the near future, we will have that available where you can see your active keys and inactive keys. Certainly wouldn't want to delete them. You want to make sure that you're aware of them, as we were talking about before, but certainly can have a different way of displaying that or hiding them from you.
Awesome. Love that. Let's see. Here's a question just asking from Jesse. When was the Coldcard first developed? When did it come out? Dee?
Great question. So I've been with the company for about a year now. So I'm pretty new. I believe that the Coldcard started coming out in 2017. So we're fairly new with the Coldcards, but our company has been around since, I believe, 2014. So we've been innovating and developing. But yeah, the Coldcard, we have our Mark II, Mark III, and Mark IV so far. And the Mark II is a little outdated. Like I said, security is a moving goalpost, moving target. but we still do have updates in firmware for it.
Perfect. Sorry, my mouse gave up, so I'm having to use my laptop here, so it takes me a few more minutes to get back to where I needed to be. So apologize for that pause. I did want to cover one. M has a question just about KYC, privacy. So I think it's an important thing to touch on, and most important is to ensure that like people understand privacy. So the question is, once stored in my vault, would you consider non-KYC stats become KYC once they're moved to the vault? So I'm going to kind of rephrase this, and hopefully I get to the gist of what M's trying to mention here. If you are moving Bitcoin to your Unchained vault, you did do KYC for your vault, right? Like you had to set up an account. We are a financial institution, and we do have to adhere to AML and KYC laws. So if your funds are there, then yes, they are attached to your identity. I think being upfront about that is extremely important. But one thing you have to think about is, where did you purchase your Bitcoin? So if you purchased your Bitcoin from Kraken or any other exchange that does this, it's already connected to your identity. So where you're storing it matters a little bit less in that regard. And I only say that because I think some people purchase from an exchange and then they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to now hold it in my single sig Coldcard, and now I'm KYC free. It's like, no, like you purchased it with KYC, right? So those are just things to think about. So with Unchained, yes, you did KYC to have an account. If you move funds there, then they are attached to your identity, but perhaps the trail is already in route there, right? So where did you purchase them from? So I think privacy is important, and it's important to be educated on it, and everything has trade-offs, right? So just ensure that you understand what it means, privacy in Bitcoin, and then take the steps needed for that.
And Justine, I know we're just at time here, but I want to add just one other thing, which is that yes, you are giving a little bit of privacy. There is that trade-off when you're using Unchained, and we are a partner in your collaborative custody model. But the benefits of that is that we are here to help you, right? If something happens to one of your two keys, if you need to think about an inheritance planning scenario where your Bitcoin needs to pass down to your next of kin, we are here to help with that. When we're asked to sign with our key, we need to know who you are. And so that's one of the main reasons
Absolutely.
that we do need to have some of those policies in place, is so that we know that we are signing for you, that you are the one requesting that signature and not some attacker. And so I just want to round out that answer with some of those positive benefits that you do get.
Absolutely.
With Unchained as a collaborative custody partner.
No, and that's a great point. And who wants to contact your trusted party to sign it something for you when they can't verify that it's you asking, right? Like trade-offs, options are everything. So yeah, the trade-off here is you have a trusted party team of experts that can help you and is there as a backup key. And there's a trade-off there. Awesome. Well, I know we are at the time. Thank you guys for being here. This has been great. Thank you, Dee, for joining us. Thank you, everyone in the audience. You have been watching our Unchained Capital Continuing Education webinar series. They happen on the first Friday of every single month. If you haven't caught these before, please go to the links that you'll see in the chat and sign up for future ones. You can catch this on our YouTube channel next week, along with all of our other past webinars. The goal here is really just to help continue your educational journey through Bitcoin, and to be able to have a platform where you can ask questions from a team of experts. So thank you so much for joining, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you all.